Hello, Top.
Morning.
Hello. Hey. Am I the only one?
Well, at the moment, yeah, but sure we'll have some people. You feeling better?
A lot better because I have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm still coughing.
Still, yeah.
It's taking ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you not coming along to class because I know it would be very tempting to just have a lemsip and come and do the thing you want to do. But
Yeah, no, I don't think it's because when I cough, it just continues. It doesn't stop. So
Yeah.
it's not wise.
Yeah.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello.
Are you feeling better?
Yes.
Just had this conversation with Tom. Yeah, I'm just.
I say I'm alive.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. You've had a rough time, a rough do.
Oh yeah, it just doesn't stop. Stop.
You're still coughing.
Yes, I am.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
it's
but
going about this, isn't it? It's a lot. It's going around, I think.
I don't know. It's just whatever. I'm taking still antibiotics until Friday.
Right.
And I have the other day I was fine. Then it goes. Then the next day I go down.
Oh, yeah. Horrible.
Just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see you anyway. Nice to see you.
You. Missing all the classes.
I know. Yeah. A shame. What's the date today? It's the 6th, isn't it?
6th.
Today.
6th.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Sharon. Are you
Hello,
still coughing?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
It wears you out coughing, doesn't it?
How are you, Lillian?
Lillian, is your back
Lillian.
Sorry.
Is your back better, Lillian?
Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad.
We've all been in the wars.
It takes time, doesn't it? It takes time.
Yeah.
When you're older.
That's it.
That's my excuse.
So I've got a runny nose and a bit of a cough this morning. So
oh dear, in the fashion.
Yeah, I think we'll do that bit out of Jaws where we all compare our injuries next. Especially the scar where I got bitten in half. So. Thanks for coming along, guys. So last week, the plan was to get along to 5 to do a bit of a deep dive into it. And obviously every one of us was either ill or at some appointment. It was mistimed, really. But I have taken a set of photos, and I'll use today's session a little bit to talk through that and give you the session that you deserved last week, even though it'll be on. Which will save you getting the bus out to Kirkby. And that's if I can stop my nose running. So yeah, let's see what other news have we got going on.
When are the galleries opening again?
It was supposed to be an 8-week action, and I think it's already been about 3 weeks. So
yeah, they mentioned April, didn't they? So it's still on then. They're not.
Oh yeah, it's still on. Yeah, they haven't stopped it. Yeah. I know various people who worked at the Walker, and they were staggered by the way they were treated. So it was
really.
That was even before COVID.
Yes.
So, it was it's been a long time coming, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But and it's the people who work there who give us the galleries. Who we as artists,
of course,
we need them.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, it is unfortunate. Thinking about that question though, obviously the galleries that are not affected by it include the Victoria Gallery, which is brilliant. We've been to a few times. Kirkby Gallery, which is a different local authority.
Yeah.
Also things like the Atkinson and
Williamson.
Yeah, Warrington Gallery. There's a ton of places we can go for days out. There's even there's a lot of places that are overlooked in Liverpool. Like we haven't been to Fact. Fact is a fascinating place.
Mm.
So we will still be able to do our ordinary days out, but just we'll do them in.
Going to the Atkinson next week because the Sefton Open. You can take stuff in next Tuesday, so I'm submitting. Whether it will get accepted, I don't know. I'm taking 3 things down anyway. So.
Well, that kind of leads us on actually to this experience of exhibiting and submitting to. So I find the experience of submitting to something really harrowing, because we never know whether our work is going to be accepted.
I know, yeah.
I remember doing it at some drawing for the drawing show at the Bridewell, and it didn't get accepted, and they said they'd had 1,000 submissions. Now, to be fair, it was organised by the drawing paper, which is quite a big thing. So I knew there were going to be a lot of submissions. Didn't expect over 1,000. But it was funny that on that day, a lot of people I knew were on Facebook going, oh, well, we didn't get into that one.
Yeah.
And it was, and a lot of people had done drawing, especially for that show, so I'd spent like a couple of days on making drawing for it. And the sense of having your work rejected is
I know, it's a bit disheartening.
Yeah.
I got rejected from the Williamson, but I got accepted last year for the Sefton, for the Atkinson.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is, isn't it?
Well, it is what it is, and we can't let our valuing of our work fall into either of 2 things, and one of them is how much people are prepared to pay for it. That's nothing to do with actually with the value.
No.
There are many ways we could talk about valuing our work, and one of them for me is how important it is in the stage of your development. So you specifically, how does this lead you on to the next set of work or the new ideas or the thing that's going to really scratch that itch that you're trying to achieve?
I never know what sort of figure to put on. I just pluck one out the air. I never know what to, because they're so varied anyway. When you go to these things, they're so varied, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, there is actually an equation for that, which is, if people really struggle with pricing, you can use this equation, which is works out how much you paid in materials versus a reasonable, at least minimum wage working slot for how many hours you put into it.
Yeah.
You then add in your current exhibit and profile. So, have you been exhibiting in the last couple of years? Are you exhibiting outside your city? Are you, so all these things affect it. And come up with it.
And you've got to take into account what commission they charge as well, and how much you've paid out for framing and that sort of thing, and general.
You could end up actually being out of pocket if you wanted to charge.
Oh yeah, you could, yeah.
And it's instinctive, isn't it? A lot of artists. I was talking about this the other day. On my foundation, I sold a piece, and it's quite rare actually to sell a piece on your degree. It's very rare to sell a piece on your foundation. And looking back, I understand it was because it was the partner of my best friend's dad, and it obviously thought, well, we'll support this kid, But this was like 1990, and it was a one-off painting, and they'd offered me 50 quid for it. 1989, actually, it was 50 quid for it. And at the time, 50 quid was a lot of money. If you think about, like, the bus fares at the time, were 5 pence.
Yes.
Or 9 pence, and a little square ticket. And,
those were the days.
so if bus fares are what we take into account, it's more than 20 times the value of what it was.
Yeah.
House prices are, everything in
everything. Yeah.
50 quid was a lot at the time, and I made the. So this is when I made my first psychological error. I was so excited that the guy had offered me money for the work, because what it meant was not the thing that people say, oh, I like that work. He was proving it by putting that into I was so excited that I just said, oh, you can have it for free.
Oh.
No, that is not how this works. Because I felt really validated by the fact that I paid money. And we often tend to undervalue our work as well. We tend to,
I guess.
Well, it's just something I do. It's not, being an artist isn't as valuable as being a rocket scientist or whatever. But actually, I think again we're wrong about undervaluing the arts. And if we look back, we've just come out of a pandemic, and the only thing that kept people going was, it was things like Netflix or reading or or arts groups. Like, I mean, we did a lot of our Patreon meetups and drawing and things like that. So it was TV, it was literature, it was visual arts, it was all the arts that actually kept society functioning.
That's right. Yeah.
All of the mental health problems that people went through and the societal damage that's still happening now. Where you notice people are kind of ruder than they used to be, or those things would have been much worse, I think, without artists trying to make the world better.
Yeah.
I know that sounds idealistic, but I absolutely believe it's true. So now that we've achieved quorum, good morning, artists. I wanted to show you some 5. So I put together a slides presentation about it, and I just thought to talk through it in a little bit more depth. So let me do screen share. We've been out to galleries for so many weeks, I can't remember how to do Zoom. So there we go. Screen share. Okay, so here's some hippies, and you'll notice there are 5 of them. So Paul and I was actually teaching life drawing at 90 degrees, and I got this email through because often when I'm teaching and I haven't got time to draw, I'll catch up with admin on my phone. So it looks like I'm sitting playing on Facebook, I'm doing all kinds of banking and everything. And I was answering emails at the time, and we just had this email from Kirkby Gallery saying, "Would you like to be included in 5?" And Paul and I both knew what 5 was. It's the idea that every 5 years they're going to exhibit 5 artists, and they're going to support the career to start off. Now, I had some real luck before COVID, where I've been exhibiting in London with a show about Saint Sebastian, and that felt like a real breakout to actually get work shown in London. But of course, COVID changed the shape of things, and all of the contacts I've made in London actually moved out of London over the next couple of years. Went to live in the countryside. So had COVID not happened, I think I would have been able to keep those contacts and exhibit more in London, which would have been a big step up in profile. But Paul and I both understood that this was a big opportunity like this. And we only knew us, we didn't know the other artists at the time, but we immediately the next day we were like big kids, we went and had a coffee to plan what we were going to do and how excited we were. And one of the big things we'd understood was that the gallery space is very large. So we both thought, well, we've got the chance to work bigger than we normally do. And when we actually we set up a WhatsApp group and we went and had meetings with the gallery, and we met this lovely lady who was Natalie, and Natalie was front of house at the Everyman, and she'd let us do lots of urban sketching stuff and free things and making workshops. So we already knew, and we really liked Natalie, and we had a good relationship with her. And then we met Alan, who, in the way that I've got several names, Tok being one of them. Alan is called Barney. So yeah, which has nothing to do with Alan, but his work was wonderful. And then Sophie was very mysterious, and we didn't really meet her until the end. And when she arrived, for some reason I thought Sophie was blonde, and I was looking for a blonde lady. And then she walked in and talked to us, and I went, "Oh my God, you're the other artist, aren't you?" But I'd seen her work, and I knew I really liked her work. So first of all, this was the 5. And if anyone knows Roger, will know that this time there were 6 artists in 5. But we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. So, right. So the Kirkby Gallery is in the Kirkby Centre, as we know, and the room next to it is the library. So we couldn't really see this on the night of the private view, but the library is the funded municipal space there. But a lot of people come in to use the library, and they'll come in basically to use a computer to sort something for council tax or whatever out. You use it as a library facility, but they never think to come into the gallery because they don't feel, there's still this thing where a lot of people feel that they're not allowed to go into galleries, or that they're not clever enough somehow, or whatever. So Tina very, very joyfully often when she exhibits, she'll put stuff on the outside wall as well, facing into the library, just to encourage people to come in. So before we even got into the space, we were invited to put some stuff in the hallway. So we wanted to do something a little bit different for that, but you can see that there's this stylistic thing where all of these paintings are very, very different. So to see them next to each other is kind of useful. So we can see Barney's landscape looking across the water to Liverpool, which is a lot of his themes. We can see Paul's, both of them very desaturated in terms of colour. So not vivid colour, but very moody and sophisticated actually in terms of palette. And then there was my one, which is, I'll talk about when we get to it, but this was the first time I gessoed the canvas. So when we got this exhibit, this project coming about painting, I'll be showing you how to gesso a canvas in the way that I'd learned to do it. And I was actually using a window squeegee for that. so
Oh, right.
and you don't put, by the way, you don't put one layer of gesso over, and you have to squeegee it or soften it each time you do it, because the idea of the gesso is not to just put, if you imagine the bumpy surface of a woven canvas, it's not to just coat it, so it's the same bumpy surface but just higher up. It's to force it between, so it smooths it out as much as possible. And I ended up putting 8 coats on it, and some artists use up to 12 coats. Some artists use even more than that. And where's she gone? She's moved now, but she was just sitting here beside me. Walking through the gesso, and walking it on the black couch, and walking it on the. And then we can see Natalie's work and Sophie's work next to each other. And these, as opposed to the other two male artists, the two female artists both use very vivid, saturated colour, very fierce colour. So there's me in the middle, and I'm put into a show with what people I consider to be real painters, people who understand colour. And actually, what I'm doing here is a grisaille painting with a glaze of colour over it. So it's a much more Renaissance process. And that's why we did the Tenebrism project, really, so I could understand how to do this. But mine felt like not a real painter. So I just want you to know that when you're making an exhibition and you feel like other people's work is better than yours, everybody has that. Everybody goes through that. So even when I'm invited to exhibit in this lovely public municipal gallery, each one of us, each one of the 5 here, all thought that the others were the real painters, and they weren't. So we had this sense of imposter syndrome almost. That people always look at each other's work and see the good points in it, but don't necessarily see it in their own work. When we talked about our work, Roger talked about his to the curation staff, and he said, "I'm not like these guys. I'm a bit of a hobbyist, and I'm only painting for fun." And I look at Roger's sense of light and how he puts colour and light together, particularly on one of the ones of a street in Bath, I think, that I haven't got on this slideshow, but his sense of light is remarkable. And had I had some spare money, I probably would have bought some of Roger's work this time, even though I've absolutely got no wall space left. So I've never been so professionally supported by a gallery, and each one of us, so this is Alan doing his, on the day of the private view, we were invited in at midday, and the idea was that we could talk to, first of all, these are the curation staff and the volunteers, and each one of us got to explain our work, and then they gave us a little room to sit at the back with cakes and tea and everything. We had an hour's rest, and we came out and did the same talk for the local education staff, so all of the heads of departments and headmasters and people who come in, and both the curators and the headmasters would then go and disseminate what we had said about our work to their people. So when they had gallery visits, they could really fluidly talk about what we were saying. So we weren't asked to write a 1,000-word essay about it or whatever. We were given this chance to talk about what our work was about. And it was just so professional. I've never seen, I've just never been treated like this before. We were a bit kind of like treated like rock stars. And the fascinating thing was that people who bought the catalogue kept coming over and asking us to autograph it. I was like, wow. And I must have, on that day, you know, when we got to do this talk around our work, I must have signed about 40 autographs. And it does a certain thing to your head where you're going, is this serious? Is this people actually really asking for my autograph?
We'll ask for it on Monday.
Ask for it on Monday, yeah. I'll have a merch stall and I'll be selling photos of myself that you can buy for a tenner, and I'll sign them. So
yeah. I'll get something for you to sign. I'll do a selfie with it.
Yeah, and any old thing. I'll just, as long as it's not a check to. But yeah, so this is Alan talking about his work, and again, in a lot of ways, I mean, Paul and I have the advantage here because we taught for years, so we used to stand up in front of people and talking. Whereas the other artists, I don't know how they felt about it, whether they were nervous or whether it was a huge opportunity. So, so I'll just talk through a little bit of Alan's stuff. So, this is St. Ives, and one of the things he said about this was that he wanted to treat it as an industrial town. So, of course, initially it was a fishing village until artists moved there and decided that they liked the light and that they were interested in becoming an artist colony. Of course, the bones of it are an industrial place. So part of the way he's described that, I think, is with these very desaturated colours again. And we'd expect, if we're going to St. Ives, to have a very, broad blue sky and the vivid colours on things. But something about the way Alan uses colour for me is got all kinds of implications. It's nostalgic. It's a little bit sepia. It's melancholy because it's not that vivid, bright thing. It's textured. It's a remarkable set of work, which to me, again, had I had some money, I probably would have bought some of Barney's stuff. You can see
it's lovely. It's not sort of typical of St. Ives, is it? Really?
No, I think he's caught something really interesting there.
Yeah.
So we could all do the tourist version of it, and actually that's not what he's doing. He's doing something a lot more interesting than that, I think. So
I think Simon Reeves caught a bit of that on, he on television. He did the couldn't go abroad looking at. So he went to Cornwall, which is, I think, somewhere near where he lives, and he caught the back. That's a backstory. That's what's happening behind.
Yeah, because we know, if it's not just a tourist presentation, we know that in each of these windows there's real people living, and he seems to have a fascination with windows, actually, and with light in windows. So. But yeah, I just thought it was a beautiful piece, and his textures and his colours and his sense of reflection and everything is remarkable. This one was called Hope Street. So, what he does, he lives, if I'm not mistaken, he lives in Prescott, which is part of the Kirkby Gallery's remit, and this is Hope Street in Prescott, and he also he has a cottage in Wales. So between his painting subjects really are Prescott and that area, Liverpool and Wales. So this is what he's doing. But this was the one that made me understand that he understands light much more than I do. So his sense of light is just magnificent. And he talks about
the sky.
So we look at these textures,
lovely, isn't it?
Like the paint drip, but that he's got these real differences between these lights and darks, and the lights are gradually coming on this street as it's going dark, which he talked about being a metaphor for hope.
So what medium he used? What is it?
So he tends to use either acrylic or oils, but with either one, I'm not sure what this one is, but if you do them properly, actually they look kind of the same, But with these drips and this kind of softness, you could do that with oils with solvent, or you could do it with acrylic with water. It's going to allow the same effect, really.
You could do it with watercolour, couldn't you, really?
You could, yeah. I mean, I'd struggle. I can't get anything useful out of watercolour, but
no, I'm not. No.
Neither can I.
Well,
no, it's difficult.
When everybody, people often ask, well, can can we do some watercolor? And I think it's because people think watercolor is the easiest one, and
Not,
actually
is it?
it's easily the hardest one. So
The
it's like,
tutor I used to have at night school, he wouldn't teach watercolor for that reason, because he said it's,
and it's not that you can't. I mean, I know artists who use watercolor really successfully. Paul is one of them. Yeah. But the reason why you might not teach watercolor is because people think it is a beginner's thing, and then they get really frustrated when they can't do it because it's actually so much harder than some of the
yeah.
other. I love it. So again, it's about texture, and if you look at his brush marks here, they're incredibly. Not sure even whether you might use the palette knife for this, but the paint is very stippled in texture, and his desaturation allows for this almost like misty, foggy thing. And he's got one window lit, so I think that this work is actually really neat.
Yeah, it reminds me of Lowry a bit. You know, the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting, you could walk around this exhibition, you could look at all 5 artists, and then go out and look at Roger, and you could probably name their influences. You could probably say, well, I think they like this artist, and that'd be a great game to play. Actually, if we'd got everyone over to the exhibition, you could have gone around and in your sketchbook listed the artists that you think we like.
Yeah, good, yeah.
It looks as though there's either a TV or a sunbed in the blue window.
Yeah, that's it. So it's really unusual. So there's no warm temperature colours really in that at all, is there? It's the closest we've got is this kind of slightly warmer grey that's like a yellowy grey. Was my favourite one. If I had someone, I would have bought this one. I think. Again, we've got like some blue lights and some yellow lights here, and the light coming from behind the thing is the important thing, I think.
Where were these talks? Sorry, I came late.
You're okay. These are this is 5. This is the 5 exhibition. So I was just talking through the work because I wanted people to have a slightly more in-depth version of what people have done. So this is Alan's work, and of all of them, I probably would have wanted to buy this one piece. But yeah, I just I literally put every penny into making the work that I was making. So I think we all had this experience where we were all. It was a huge opportunity to exhibit here, but it was also quite an investment in terms of time.
I like the way it's framed as well. All his work is framed.
Yes, nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's off the painting.
Well, one of the things that really interests me, I wonder if it's this next one. It might be that one. So this is by his cottage in Wales, and you can almost hear the water running here, can't you? And I think this is the one which was originally a panel from a wardrobe, and it's still got the nail holes in it. Now that tells a story about where it comes from and how he thought about it. And I'm guessing the wardrobe is from the cottage in Wales, so it's got some semiotic kind of narrative to it. But you could have very easily filled those little holes in if you wanted to. If you wanted to disguise that and just use it as a board. But the fact that he left them in, and I think they're just kind of here, just at these tiny. There's about 3 of them, but these are with the nail that describe what this thing is. So it's not just a piece of shop board.
There's something on the side of the frame as well. On the white, the outside frame, halfway down.
Whereabouts?
Halfway down on the out there.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit where it's attached to the wall.
It might be.
It could be.
The things he did have was that he got these frames built, and the guy who built the frames was very good, but the frames had actually started to separate at the corners somehow. So I know Alan had to go back in and fix the frames partway through the exhibition, and he was. I think visually people might not have noticed that much, but he is a perfectionist, and I think he was quite stressed, that the frames had not been as perfect as he wanted them to be. Actually, this looks pristine to me, so I'm not sure whether that was either part of the hanging or a fixing thing.
It might have been, mightn't it? Yeah.
But he definitely had this eye for to make it perfect in the sense of exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, it's really good.
And that's what was that? I was looking at the title of this one yesterday. It's a place in Wales, but it's something like the mansion there, or whatever it was. But somehow very nostalgic and very very kind of almost like early 20th century British description of you know, it's not a terraced house in Bootle. It's, you know, it's a kind of space that we can almost have this cultural dream about almost. And this space obviously is an iconic space that many Liverpool artists have tackled. I've tried this one myself. Yeah.
That's one of his as well.
That's one of his as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've all tried
They're all
that.
good, aren't they?
Yeah.
I like all of them so far.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I was blown away by this guy's work, and I thought it was very sophisticated, and I really liked it. So that's quite intimidating. You know, I saw this exhibition up before anyone else did, because I went in to actually add a little bit more gold leaf, and the gallery let me do that. But I went in because it was, you know, so I got the chance to see the work together. And again, that sense of imposter syndrome kicks in, where you look around and you think, wow, these guys are for real. Yeah.
Why is that one in the case, the glass case?
Some
perspex case.
We had some of them in cases because of the way they were framed, and we didn't want to be touched or anything like that.
Okay.
And I think some of Roger's outside are in frames. The ones on the stairwell, I think, I'm sure Tina said there was like they regard that as a different type of insurance or something on the stairwell, so they acted in some way. But some of Roger's ones on the stairwell, as you went up, actually prints or copies of his main paintings. So it's kind of to invite. So this was Sophie, and we could see a massive difference in this. How, you know, how they curated this to get this to hang together, I don't know. But Sophie's work is obviously is a kind of call to abstract expressionism, completely different to Alan's. And she talks about describing the world that she's in, and the physicality of it. So in her statement, you know, she kind of talks about this being a natural response to what she's seeing around her. We can see, first of all, that she's using much more saturated colour, much stronger chroma in the colours. And we can see, if you remember, we did our project about abstract painting, we can start to see, to some extent, some things in front of and behind of other things. So we might say that a red colour comes forward and a blue colour recedes. Or we might say that, you know, the particular marks seem to sit on the surface and others go back, and so we can build up a kind of fascination with this work where we stand in front of it and we try and figure out what's happening in it. We can see this red bar is clearly in front of the black, because the brain tells us that the black shapes must carry on going behind that. So we get a sense of depth and distance. We see the black is in front of this yellow drift pattern. And what that's telling the brain is that there's certain levels of physical space that we can see things in front of other things. Of these, probably this red is the warmest colour. So we would say, in terms of landscape, that's coming forward as well. So push and pull in abstract painting, and seeing what's at the back, what's at the front is a way into it. Also understanding it in terms of the formal elements of composition, balance, you know, colour balance, these angular shapes which might indicate where we want the composition to go, where we want the eye to go. So I'd probably come in at this side in the way we would if we were writing text, and use this arrow to indicate that I'm going along here, and then get caught up with this curve here, and then go back into it. And so compositionally, it's really clever, really in depth. You know? I think this is my favourite one of Sophie's, because these red spikes just tell me about some physical space happening. And it's the kind of thing that with the eye you can be seduced into looking at for a long time. You know, it doesn't tell you all the answers. So you remember my tutor on degree saying the good fine arts practice doesn't answer questions, it asks them. So we shouldn't ever feel that we fully understand the piece when we, you know, we should be drawn to come back and look at it again and again, and keep seeing new things, and keep changing how we see it.
Did she give any explanation of what she was trying to do with that particular painting?
Possibly in the catalogue. because we all got to write, you know, kind of about 1,000 words in the catalogue. Or maybe
Yeah, partly collage. It looks like the yellow thing. It looks like it's
it does.
stuck on.
I'm pretty
And,
sure.
and the
that's
white as
actually
well. The white
just
looks like
masked
it's.
paint. So I think that there's been like one layer of paint has dried, and then it's been masked, probably in a kind of Hockney way, and then the next layer of paint has gone on top of it.
But it looks at the bottom as though it's been stuck on.
Yeah.
the edge yeah.
That looks like an eye to me.
It
And
does.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I agree.
On in, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it could be looking out the world, and yeah.
This almost feels like a sunset sky or something, doesn't it, going on in the background? So
It's quite disturbing, isn't it, with those spikes going towards
and
it?
it is, isn't it? Yeah. It's so there's I don't know whether, you know, if we think back honestly, before we did the abstract painting project, could we have engaged with this in the same way, or would we have felt a little bit excluded from it? Yeah. It's certainly, you know, I could talk about this one for the whole session, to be honest.
It's very clever, isn't it? Very cleverly done.
This one, I mean, the translucency of this yellow spring going across it, and its relationship with the blue triangles, and the textures in the background. Again, using these kind of drip patterns that Alan was using, and this set of almost abstract mountains at the bottom, which is like a sharp teeth.
Has it got a title on the bottom there?
It says something at the bottom, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Can't see it.
Oh,
this suddenly this perspective got too much to bear, I think.
oh, right.
That's me.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Me have to take my glasses off to read off the screen.
But when he said that, you could be at the bottom looking up at tall buildings in the sky, and then this,
yeah, with this kind of event happening, whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
So one of the things, you know, to think about with Sophie's work, things that were invited into it to have these conversations and to be intrigued by it. This one just looked to me like, for all the world, like that thing where you're going home in a car from somewhere, and it's the sun setting, and you're moving really fast, and, you know, it's not that. It's just that as those, you know, abstract work has very strong echoes where we can start to see other things in it. These look like these very thin lines look like drips that have been expressed over the surfaces. We can think about how they're built up. You know, what comes first when you're painting. What would you put down first? You know, and that they're absolutely not. You know, we often, you know, the thing that we hear most about abstract painting is, well, my kid could do that, and I would look at this and go, absolutely, your kid couldn't do that, because, you know, me as a trained artist who's been doing it for the last 40 years, I can't do this. You know, so, but it takes a bit of understanding to recognise how sophisticated these are. And then, so this was me getting to explain my work, and obviously I've made these big religious triptychs, which weirdly are the least religious work I've ever done, I think, because the metaphors are all available in terms of how we know what the story was, and everybody recognises it. But I'm in a way, I'm not actually dealing with the kind of the difficulties I had growing up with religion. I'm dealing with what's, you know, with other issues, really, and using this as metaphor for it. But again, it was a lovely chance to just talk about the work. But you can see that from the height of me, I'm not the tallest guy in the world, and the height of me that I actually often had to stand on a chair to reach the top of the painting when I was painting on it. So this was by far the biggest painting I've ever done, and I had to learn a lot to do it. So I had to learn a lot about tenebrism, which is why we did the tenebrism project, because when I'm learning about this, I felt dead excited about it, and I wanted to share it with you guys. You know, so I like this idea that when an artist is learning something and teaching, that they teach about what they're excited about at that point, you know, so in order that other people can share that.
I think religion
really
had a
stands out, doesn't it?
It's what, sorry. So,
I said that blue colour stands
Oh, yeah.
out
So I'll
against all the browns
Yeah.
and
Extraordinary. It's
talk a little bit
amazing.
about blue. Obviously, the main the grisaille underneath it was umber and white, and it's a brown scale across or a grey scale across, but using browns. What I couldn't do, actually, this central panel couldn't fit in my flat because we couldn't get it up the stairs.
Oh,
Whereas the side ones are narrower and they could fit up the stairs. So what I was doing was going and painting in Kirkby in the day.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished teaching, really, I'd go, even on a Monday, I could go over, get there about 3 when I finished teaching, a couple of buses, go over and paint on this one in grisaille, and then paint on these 2 side panels in grisaille. What I couldn't do was line them up next to each other. So the idea that the unrepentant thief would be pointing at Jesus in an accusing way, I hadn't seen them together. And particularly important in the composition I wanted. So this is Dismas, the repentant thief. John the Beloved, played by Mo Salah.
Every time I see that, I see Mo Salah ever since you said,
Well, it was kind of about, a lot of this was actually about what was happening in the world, and Mo Salah had tweeted about the conflict in Israel and Gaza,
Right.
and he looked really heartbroken. And what I noticed was that he was lit from exactly the same angles, all the models. But of course, here's me in the summer paying out for I think 6 models altogether, and it absolutely bankrupted me. I couldn't afford it. I didn't have any money coming in the summer because classes all tend to stop. So I paid out for 6 models, but of course, the models had to do the same poses. So this thief was actually the same model who played John the Beloved.
Oh, right.
You couldn't just have the same face next to it.
No.
So it wasn't going to work. So in many ways, I was looking for other faces, while I was doing it. The guy who played Jesus obviously was just Jesus, so that was okay because whichever photo he was in, he was the only one who had that like long hair and the beard and everything. But what I wanted was, so from this head down through this head, across the knee, across Mary's head and down to this helmet here. There's this idea of a diagonal composition, so a rhythm across. But of course, they weren't in the same building. I couldn't actually line them up to say, is that matching with that? So when I got to see them together, there was a huge sense of relief that that they actually lined up in the way I wanted them to.
See, Josie would have done all the measuring first. She would
Well, this is it. Yeah. Josie, you put me to shame with your level of planning.
I was just wondering whether Mo Salah's fee for modelling was too much for you.
Mo Salah's feet. Yeah, it's.
What bankrupted you?
I'd watched this thing about, and it was about British kings being painted, and one of the things it said was that you notice across it some bits are more detailed than other bits, and it was talking about a lace shirt, like a ruffled lace shirt, and to the eye, you kind of step back, go there's the lace shirt, and it looks about right. When you went in close, it wasn't nearly as detailed as the faces, and they said this was a deliberate strategy to pull you back into the bits they wanted to look at. So some bits became more abstracted, and some bits became less. And what I want, although it's obviously based on Tenebrism, and there's the Caravaggio aspect of it here. If I was to carry this forward, and I want to do some stuff about Greek myth, I want to do Icarus at some point. It would probably be a lot more abstract and probably be a lot more pared down, but still keeping the darks and lights in the colour. Just so so I probably mentioned this already, but Caravaggio didn't know what Roman soldiers looked like because he didn't have the internet and he didn't have a museum to show you Roman helmets or anything. So he just assumed that they looked like soldiers of his day. So he painted soldiers of his day, which allowed me, because he did that, allowed me to think, well, I can use police uniform, as a representation of the state. And obviously we are in a time of war, and someone had said, so is this rubble Gaza? And I thought, well, it is Gaza. It's Ukraine. It's it's Afghanistan. It's Iraq. It's when we had the First World War, they called it the war to end all wars, and actually we've been in a constant state of war since then. And you know, it was the troubled Balkans when I was growing up in Serbia and Croatia, and it was.
There's always something going on somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it was the Cold War when we were. Yes.
Yeah, I mean the Cold War. The interesting, like, so the Cold War was going on, and I think during the Cold War, the Russians had troops in Afghanistan, and the local fighters who fought the Russians, the Mujahideen, the holy warriors, and managed to keep the Russians out. You know, the Russians couldn't take Afghanistan, but the Mujahideen were being funded largely by the CIA, and the CIA sent them money for arms and for, you know, because during the Cold War, obviously America and Russia weren't nuking each other, but they were certainly supporting each other's enemies, you know. And of course, the Mujahideen went on to become the Taliban. And when the British and American troops landed there, they already had loads of weapons and loads of training and everything. So it's almost like you can set up a war in someone else's country and you can think it won't affect you. And of course, it does. You know.
It's back to bite you.
Well, as soon as you have a war somewhere, you get a load of disenfranchised, angry people, and they're gonna, you know, when Iraq was happening, I remember a very sensible man talking at the time about how it would destabilize the region. Now, many more people would die because of it than it appeared, and tragically, I was going out with a soldier at the time who fought in Iraq, and what he told me was not what was on the news. And I remember them talking about precision bombing.
You're in that then.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember a footage on the BBC, and they showed a bomb going down the chimney of a factory, and they said, "Oh, it was at night. Nobody was in the factory, but it destroyed the possibility of making arms." And they played it as though no one was being killed. And I know when I was going out with Andy, his job was actually to clear the Basra Road, because people had tried to escape in cars and buses, and it was just a gridlock. No one could get out, and the Allied troops had strafed them and bombed all of the cars, and his job was to get the bodies out of the cars because they were so badly burnt that they couldn't tell whether they were men or women, and he needed to. He was told to identify whether they were men or women to calculate how many male soldiers were still left in the city, and that never got on the news. But I know someone who was there, you know, who talked about it, and it was a shocking thing. But yeah, but kind of back to the painting, you know, we had a thief who repented, according to scripture. We had a thief who so basically we have one thief on one side. They're not thieves at all, the bandits. So at the time that the zealots fought the Romans, the kind of very fierce Jewish soldiers who wouldn't submit to Roman rule, often lived outside the cities and went and hid in caves and so on. Learned loads of martial arts and attacked Roman convoys. And the Romans would put them to the extreme penalty of crucifixion, which wasn't really used for, you know, for people who stole bread out of a shop, you know, or something. So the word thief isn't right. You know, these people were seditionists. And that's why, you know, obviously Jesus was crucified and he was accused of saying that he was the king of the Jews. So to Roman authority, that was unacceptable as well. Yeah. But we had, you know, according to scripture, we had this one thief who basically says to Jesus, well, if you're so important, save yourself and save us too, you know, and kind of sneers at him and mocks him. So it was important for me that his knees are pointing away from Jesus. So, and this guy obviously says, well, you know, we're violent men and we've earned this, but he's not a violent man. He doesn't deserve this. And so his hand he's trying to make this gesture of almost explaining the point, even though that, you know, they're clearly both nailed through the wrist at the you know, to the crossbar. The hands are still an expressive language, and you can still use them to make gestures. You know?
That knee on Jesus looks 3D when you see it.
Yeah, it's a horrible. So we'll talk a little bit about colour here. One of the things that so obviously, you know, I've been a Buddhist actually longer than I was a Catholic. If you see a statue of the Buddha, which you might not realise, but you'll see a hand gesture, you'll see a particular facial expression, and you'll see maybe something colourised. And basically, they all look very similar, but the hand gesture or whatever it is tells you which Buddha it is, you know, which enlightened mind this represents. One But inside, that's really different. So inside the statue, which the viewer can't see, there's thousands of rolled up mantras and scrolls and dedications and pieces of gold or jewels or flower petals, incense, and they're all actually for the deity. They're not for the viewer. So it's the idea of secret offerings. So when
people have put those in, you mean?
Yeah,
people have, yeah.
It's done really ritualistically, like they're packed in at certain levels, and
Right.
they represent different chakras of the energy centers of the body. And I'm thinking, you can't see it from outside at all, but that's actually what's inside them. So I love this idea, and so when I did Jesus' knee, part of it, like I wanted to add in these secret offerings, so I cut my thumb and added my blood.
Oh, you said, yeah.
Into the nail wounds and into the injuries like the knee.
They've all got knee injuries, haven't they?
Well, they were they were tied to the crossbar, not the whole cross, but the crossbar, and forced to walk about 600 yards to where this place was.
Right.
Almost always they would have fallen, and you can't get your hands out to save yourself if you fall, and if you're tied to a wooden log. And
No.
The idea of humiliation, I suppose. So yeah, they probably would have all had knee injuries. Worst of all, you know what I didn't depict it. They probably would have facial injuries as well, because they couldn't the face hitting the floor.
Fall on the face, yeah.
Which is again, to fall on your face is almost a metaphorical humiliation, isn't it? It's designed to humiliate.
How did the models pose like that? Have you already said that pose?
So the cross, you'll notice there's this thing called a sedile, which is like a seat on the cross, and the Romans described it as being sat on the cross. So we hired a bar stool, a tall bar stool, and a ladder as the shape of the cross. So that bit of where the ladder was, which is often depicted as the Romans climbing up to put this accusation on, was a real ladder, and this was a carpet rolled tube, like a heavy cardboard tube. But there was no downwards bar on the real thing. So when we posed the models, we had to use the bar stool here.
Oh, I can see that now.
Yeah. It wasn't hard, but what the hardest one was the deposition from the cross, because the other two models had to actually hold the weight of the body. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, I've only got to do it long enough to get a set of photos. So a matter of 4 or 5 minutes in the pose. Most of it was in the setup. But then I'm thinking, how the hell did Caravaggio and the other artists do things like a deposition from the cross? I've got a book there of about 200 different artists who've done it.
Yeah.
How the hell would you manage that? Yeah. So that, yeah,
they didn't write that down anywhere.
Well, this is so I couldn't even figure out how artists like Caravaggio would spotlight the figure. This is, you have to remember, this is before electric lighting. So I had the luxury of an electric spot lamp. Yeah. Caravaggio didn't have that. So
somebody holding a torch, it would have been, wouldn't it?
Well, I think according to Jarman's film about him, there's servants carrying a brass mirror, polished brass mirror, and they sunlight from a light room into a room. So yeah, this is Philip, who is obviously, we've drawn Philip before. He's the loveliest guy in the world. And to get him to play such a baddie, to get him to sneer like that was quite
done it well.
Fantastic! It's absolutely fantastic.
They were just the models. So that's Philip and Ben, and they were really cool. The guy who played Jesus, Mike, who never worked it before, was brilliant.
Yeah.
And Julie, who we've drawn before as well, Julie, played the mother of Jesus, and she was just remarkable, and she had acting experience. So these two, you have to remember, these two people had never met each other before this day. so such a natural pose and such a beautiful. And this is, I include this one because it's the grisaille to show you the process. So before the colour went on, and I almost checked it out. I almost left them just as grisaille because I liked the. But this is the lady who donated the. She was an icon painter, an icon writer, they call them, and she developed dementia, God love her, and she came too ill to use the materials to charm. So she donated them to Lias when we were at Rose Lane, and then we almost lost the materials when it ended up in the skip. So the jar of powdered lapis survived right through COVID, and it became a symbol almost for grief, but for hope as well. You know?
Regeneration.
Yeah. And of course, like, you know, what part of this work for me is about losing my mum. So this idea of the most expensive offering, the lapis, actually being for the mother figure. And she's holding him like he's a baby.
Yeah, it's very moving.
One of the things this was that there's a line in scripture when Jesus is born where an angel says to her, and a sword will pierce your own heart, meaning that she'll be heartbroken by what happens. So here I wanted to leave the crown of thorns on, and I wanted the thorns to be in Mary's hands. So Mary was bleeding, actually, and the blood was. But it's really just about, you know, I always look back. I got when I was about 22, and this has happened to me a couple of times actually, but I was wearing the wrong badge at a bus stop. I was wearing a gay pride badge at a bus stop, and I got battered by about 4 lads.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
I was very bloodied by it, and I came in and I was in shock, and I always think if I'd got up to my room that night, I could have cleaned my face off, and I think my mum wouldn't have been so heartbroken. But I just walked into the living room, and I remember my mum going to pieces, absolutely, because I looked so bad, you know. And I always regretted that, and I always thought putting your mum through that was like the wrong thing to do, and I should have thought at the time, you know, that she didn't need to see that. But the idea that a mum would lose the kid and be heartbroken by it was
awful.
It's a particular moment, isn't it? That, you know, that we all dread. I was actually going to include John and Magdalene in this pose pointing to the figure, and then I just thought the emptiness, like the shock of the way the world just goes into nothing when you grieve.
You lose someone, yeah.
It's kind of more powerful, not compositionally, but emotionally, it's more powerful to do the figures out.
Yeah.
So this was the hardest one. Obviously, we've got Mo Salah again, and we've got a slightly aged version of Paul playing Joseph of Arimathea, and we've got Jesus being held up. Now, we did have the bar stool underneath him, but the pose, it must have been impossible to hold. You know? And the purple nitrile gloves were because of the COVID scandal was going on that week about the PPE and how many millions have been spent on Tory donors' friends. So yeah, this was the one this was the first idea I had actually, and it was the hardest one to do.
You see, that's the classic composition shape you had there when you.
So this is the diagonal, basically the Caravaggio diagonal. So I had to balance that and get it exactly right, so the eye followed it. Even down to the point where this hand initially, the hand of Jesus at the top where it's being unnailed, was falling backwards, and the finger pointed out of the composition, and that broke Renaissance composition rules. So I had to tip the hand forward, and as soon as you tip the hand forward, it points out of the canvas like an accusation. So obviously there was a lot of Catholic guilt around this thing, and
it never leaves you.
Never leaves you. But this one in particular, so this is the one in the corridor, and this basically this is the crucifixion squad, and I had this sense that when I was first drawing these out a long time ago, they were based on footballers who'd lost a football game.
Oh, right.
And they all looked so sad and so dejected, and it suddenly made me think, so the Roman soldiers didn't want to do this either. You know, they didn't want to be in some foreign country where everyone spat at them and you know, and having to go through this trauma of torturing people, and they were just lads from a different country who didn't want to be doing this. You know? And it sounds weird, but to have some sympathy for the people, for the other people involved, and it seemed like a natural response. So this is the execution squad, and I wanted them all to look exhausted and shell-shocked almost by what they'd done. And again, we see the nitrile gloves, we see the nails and the hammer and everything, and the riot shield in the shape of a Roman scutum. But what people don't realise from looking at this is me, this is Kev, this is my friend Steve, who actually is a policeman, and this is Carl, and all 4 gay men who grew up Catholic, and who were all told that they were going to hell, and that Jesus died for them, and that they were the most sinful people. So So this idea of almost being told all your life that, well, you drove the nails in, it was your fault. So this is again an image, a much more personal image, I suppose, about how I felt about growing up with this set of images. And it's although there's no blood in this one, it's kind of equally painful. Yeah.
Well, I think the background makes up for the blood, because it sort of represents that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it also it represents fire, so there's like a sense of hell about it or whatever. But mostly it was about these lads just being in a situation that they had no say over. Yeah. And then we've got a much nicer, kinder person. Paul got the work as well, and Paul's work is just sumptuous, and it was so well curated that it sat opposite to Alan's work. Desaturated colour, nostalgia, moody, pared back, understated, very elegant, very very sophisticated work, and again, my work looked really brutal compared to I love on these ones. So this one of Eve, which really is Eve. It's not just it's about Eve, and on both of these, he's left the wood showing, which somehow is just magnificent. And he's so there's things that echo across this, like the spindles of the chair are very like the spindles of the balustrades of the banister on the pub that we're going to look at as well. This is the chair that's in the studio, and I know that I use the software to try and figure out the lighting on my figures. Paul actually made a little paper model of the studio and sat the shapes in it and spotlit it from the side to see where the shadows would go.
Oh wow!
I love that. It was such a human response to how are we going to do this, and again, this was like, this is much larger scale than Paul was used to working on. But the lad who built my frames had already built these frames for Paul, and he's a real craftsman. So very grateful for his work. Paul kind of commanded that space really, really well. It was almost like, because of this board, when you went in, it wasn't the first one that you saw, but it was kind of like it's almost its own enclave. It was like a separate country to be in. And when we went down to London to see exhibitions, and this was a pub that Paul was interested in. And as you know, Paul doesn't drink, so we went in and we sat in this pub. And as we sat down, being a machine, the Paul is, he got the sketchbook out and he just went, "I'm having that." Just started drawing these people talking at the bar, and we noticed these balustrades matching but there's a sense of it being really stripped back. Like there was a lot more detail in it than he's included, and he's summing up these essentials of a place which has had so many people's lives and people's stories in it. And, as this depiction of being the friendly local, which Paul, is that pains to point out the pubs are very rarely friendly, and was almost always up until at least the 70s entirely male spaces, and not welcoming to women, not welcoming to people of different skin color, not welcoming to gay couples, so all of the things about the friendly local. And he also points out that they're not even local, that they're generally owned by conglomerate companies, and
because the locals are gone.
Locals are gone, yeah. So Paul has this really ambivalent stance about pubs, but at the same time, the pubs and churches and various things are being closed down, and we're losing these community spaces now. How beautifully built they were, how beveled glass mirrors and handmade woodwork and brasswork, and so there's a sense of loss in them as well. Even though Paul is not a drinker, he doesn't drink.
Oh, I love that.
I remember him drawing the original of this when we were out urban sketching. And his symbol, he's drawing Budleigh because Budleigh pulls buildings down, and it's beautiful, but it destroys buildings.
Yeah, sucks the life out of them. Yeah,
and it gets in the cracks and it damages walls. It is a beautiful thing, and it's for pollinators. It's great, but Budleigh and austerity, have cost us loads of this is the Irish Centre, obviously, which is a.
I was going to say, oh yeah. What's happened to that now? Because
as far as I know, it's not been rescued. They've cut the Budlier down. It must have went well. It's probably worth more if it's still standing up. But,
where is it? The Irish Centre.
It's on Mount Pleasant, so it's.
Oh yes, yeah.
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 I know. The Irish Centre now is in North Liverpool in an old primary.
It is, yeah.
It's actually called the Assembly Rooms.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's much older and grander than actually it was used as the Irish Centre. But
I've been round it when you had to wear a hard hat, but then it was in great decay, and that was a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember going to see bands in there. We went to see John Martin play there years ago, and it was a great venue. It was lovely.
Right.
Turning the ankle is great. So yeah. So Paul is when he paints the model, he's painting a real person. He's not painting just a set of shapes. So clearly this is Eve, and it's there's a warmth and a compassion to treating the person as a person rather than just as as a generic body.
You see, he's got her shape. I could never get her shape.
Yeah. Even down to like the Eve's shape of Eve's toes, and it's very typically one person, isn't it? So yeah, there's so much poignancy and warmth in Paul's work that it's so much more subtle than mine that I love it.
And it's got her expression as well.
Yeah.
Did anybody see the programme about Klimt's portraits last night on the TV?
No, I've recorded it. I've got to watch it yet.
Well, it was saying there that all, they're very flat, and it's all about the background really, and that he wasn't trying to capture the character of the person.
Yeah.
It was just about placing people in a background, which quite the opposite of trying to.
I mean, it's stunning work, but I can see there's a coolness to it where he's not dealing with the actual person; he's dealing with almost a conceptualized version of the person. So this is, I think this is the Belvedere, I can't remember. But this one was called "Waiting for the Wrecking Ball." And this was the last. And it's,
was that?
It's the back of the Welsh church, and it just is really desolate and lost, and again we're losing a whole strata of history when these pubs get pulled down. All the people's lives and stories that happen there, even if we don't feel welcome in the pub, we're still noticing that this change is happening in society.
It's frightening looking in Liverpool now, heading towards John Lewis car park, all those ginormous flats that they're building.
Yeah.
So it's becoming homogenized shape of all these tall buildings. If you go into Manchester, I don't recognise it because it's just block after block and all these giant apartment blocks. It's just
a lot of Manchester's ones seem to go up over COVID as well. So when I got to go back after COVID, it was like, what the hell? And as you said, I didn't even recognise places where I was because the landmarks are gone, and then other things are there. So you get lost really easily, I think. And this was Paul's outside one, and he was a bit worried. This isn't the best photo, but actually, he was a bit worried that he hadn't put enough tonal contrast in this. But actually, when you stand in front of this painting, and again, we've got our Budlier, when you stand in front of this painting, it invites you in. You want to lean in closer to see the details. So
where is that?
I think it's the Dock Road. I think.
Oh right, okay.
But it's again, the shuttered up windows. It could have been somewhere in rural France, or it could be anywhere. So.
Yeah.
It won't be that for long if it's Dock Road with the new stadium coming up.
Well, loads of stuff. This is Paul is painting things that are disappearing, or a lot of temporal change in these. And I know we're low on time, and I don't want to do Natalie an injustice, but Natalie's work. So Natalie's using an acrylic gouache, which is incredibly pigmented. It's just as vivid as an ordinary gouache, but functions like an acrylic.
Oh.
And she's got these layers of
information. That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pattern in the way
it's almost 3D effect.
Yes. Yeah.
bronze come
they're
out.
using the same rules as Sophie's using. So Sophie's using very raw, saturated colour in the same way as Natalie is. But this thing of things being in front of and behind things, we're seeing but done in natural forms in plants. So I know she planted a pond in her garden, and it started to grow, and more things came from it, and it became very layered and rich. And there's this metaphor, about pulling up weeds and planting things that you want, which talks about our lives. We're getting rid of things that we don't want in our lives, and trying to plant things that we do want.
I could live with that. I don't know about your painting.
Yeah, but you definitely. Mine doesn't live in someone's living room, I don't think, because.
No, not that sort of painting, is it? But it's fantastic.
And yet, when she talked about the painting, it's so. If this blue isn't lapis, I don't know what it is. And if I'm using lapis,
gorgeous.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Just had an inspiration for the front page of my project. I'm going to put that blue in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got lots of shells on the front, so I'm going to add that colour.
I'll add some blue in there.
That's a bit like Klimt, though, isn't it? With the gold colours and the, it's.
So close up of one of the beach ones that she did. But again, each one is so unique and so. The problem with Natalie's work is I wouldn't want to buy one. I'd want to buy all of them. So
I was going to say you'd want to, I'd have the first one if I had to choose one.
There's a lot to choose, isn't it? Yeah.
How long did it take her to do those with that amount of small details?
I think we all had about 6 months, and Natalie's set of work, like mine and Paul's, is all new stuff. All work that was specifically for this show. I don't know whether Sophie's was, and I think Alan's included some that like over a period of time. So no, this is a hell of a thing. So she's talking about. Imagine looking down here where the cursor is at your feet and seeing this shape, and then how it kind of curves towards the horizon.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Experience of standing in the space. You're not viewing it as an outsider. You're viewing it as though you would have to move your head to look down, to look that way, and there's a curve.
Yeah, I think you're on the globe there, aren't you?
What's her name? Natalie. What's her?
Natalie Gilmore.
Gilmore, yeah.
And this is chard. She was out running one day and she found a field of chard, and she described stopping and being in shock. When you see certain colours together. So she's a painter's painter. She understands what she's doing. And then we had, the sixth of 5. We'll recognise this as the view from by the ship and mitre of the flyover.
Yes. Yes.
Down. So
a mitre or a mitre not.
Your ship and mitre not.
Yeah. Who did this?
So this is Roger. Is an artist who volunteers with the gallery, and what they asked him to do was to add some work into the stairwell. And as soon as he started putting this work together, obviously we all felt, well, we should call it 6 because Roger is as good as any of the rest of us. And it's funny hearing him talk about his work, because he said, well, I'm not like these guys. I'm a hobbyist. I just paint for fun. I'm thinking, oh, Roger, you paint a lot better than I am here. This is
it's lovely, that.
It's just
it is.
Again, if I would have bought one of Roger's, it would have been this one, I think, because I loved the flyover. I thought it was great, and I remember drawing it before it came down. Somehow that again, the loss of that is quite poignant. Roger's
I know that, Chippy.
It's great. In the way Natalie was using acrylic gouache, Roger was using water-soluble oil paint.
Oh.
Which doesn't seem like a thing, but it is actually. And this sense of reflections and light and I just think it's breathtaking. I think it's just a piece of work. Again, really, really poignant somehow. The humility of this ordinary thing, the Chippy being central, is somehow really warm and human.
And is the one to the left, the shot, does it say glam? And it doesn't look glam at all.
Possibly, but Roger's quite a glam guy, you know. So
Where I'd go if I want to look glam.
Well, this is it. Yeah. we all go to places, don't we? And Paul goes to an abandoned pub, and I go to the foot of Calvary, and we all go to look glam.
Oh, the Baltic.
Yeah. Surprised at how many of us pick pubs, isn't it? Because pubs are just like these like iconic, and they're always different to the ordinary landscape around them. Like this architecture is like a standout, you know, a kind of flat iron thing. Yeah.
I love the figures that he's got there on the right. It really enhances that.
Just enough, isn't it? It's like, So outside Liverpool as well, I think this is Greater Manchester.
Well, it's the tram, but it's not very iconic, the scenery.
So there we have it. And I know we've kind of gone a little bit over time there, but I wanted to play with 5 as something that we could talk through. And I know everybody was kind of like had other stuff going on last week, and it was mistimed. If I'd managed to do Kirkby this week or next week, we probably could have all got there. But yeah, it's still on for another couple of weeks.
What's the closing date, please?
The 28th, I think, is the last day of it. Because
of March.
Yeah, of March, yeah. And then it's the Easter holiday after that. So it's coming down on the Saturday and on the Easter Monday. So Paul and I are going to get our work after that. Where my 8-foot crucifixions are going to live, I don't know. So don't be surprised when you get to the new space if there might be some new work. So yeah, over that week we'll be setting up the new space, moving furniture around. Andrew's going to look at the computers to see, because they're leaving us some computers as well, to see what we can run on them.
That's good.
It is really good. They're leaving us the tables, they're leaving us the built-in spaces around the walls.
So have you got a date for moving in there then?
Yeah, it'll be April 2nd. So,
April 2nd.
So
not the 1st.
No. Well, on the 1st, I think they're going to write to us and go, April Fool, it wasn't real. You haven't actually got.
No. Yeah, the 2nd. That's brilliant.
I'm still waiting on actually getting a signature on the contract, and I know, like, you know, we're pushing backwards and forwards and things about break clauses and you know, kind of front loading the rent and all. There's all kinds of things going on where we're dancing with them and we're getting the best deal, basically. But I'm eager to just go, right, enough. Let's just get a name on the signature. So Andrea and I will both be co-signing that, and we're in the middle of sorting out like how Lias becomes a unincorporated association, I think, rather than a public limited company, so we can get our Lias bank account and all those things. But anyway, that's all stuff going on in the background. It's not massively interesting, but the thing that, you know, that we can't.
It's massively difficult getting a bank account anyway.
But once we've done once we've done that week off for Easter, which is normally a week off anyway for Easter, the next classes then will be in the new space.
It'll be after the Easter holiday, yeah.
So it's very, very exciting time. But yeah, if you
would it be something like the 8th or 9th, or I don't know.
It's probably, yeah. So let's have a look. It's probably the first Monday morning class there.
April the 8th.
April the 8th, yeah. Thanks, Roger. So that'll be the first Art for Everyone, which is normally at the church hall and the new space. So that's something to look forward to. Right, so I've kept you long enough, so I'm sorry we've gone over slightly there, but this is recorded, so anyone who didn't make it along, I might actually send this recording to the other 5 artists so we can see what you guys thought about the work as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, right. Thanks,
Okay.
Arthur.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks a lot.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.